is, what did you say it was?
Sunday,
December the 29th, 2013. I remember it's 2013. I know the year.
a good day to wake up.
It's a good day to wake up. This is the Blue Sky Jam with Elena and Michael. About eartHeart JuiceFarms and aquarium-free zones. In 1974, I received a vision of how to co-create a working, practical alternative to world empire, which means no more war, slavery, artificial economic systems, or unnecessary harm or evil in the world. I was informed that each and every juice farm is grown and co-created with universal archetypal principles, logo seeds, that are holistic, perpetual, eternal harmony, integrity, liberation, and evergreen peace through ultraviolet renaissance rose amber, spiritual new birth. I was told to begin everything with nothing, nowhere. And from this center of nothing to co-create these eartHeart juice farms or energy farms and aquarium-free zones. And now I understand there are some questions.
I want to know exactly what are the main principles. Of course, they're based on these archetypal principles, but what are the main characteristics of a juice farm?
A juice farm is a working alternative to world empire, in essence, whose ultimate purpose is to free everyone involved. That means that we live abundantly together, we share the abundance without money, charge, cost, or payment.
Okay, and I would like to know, why is it called a juice farm?
Juice is a poetic metaphor for energy abundance. Whenever you hear me say juice, I'm referring to more energy than we can ever consume. To create more energy than we would ever need to maintain and sustain the juice farm itself. So that we have so much energy, we must get rid of it. So juice is a metaphor for energy abundance.
Okay. And you talked a lot about logo seeds. I would like to speak more about logo seeds, because logo seeds can be used in many different instances, so that's my question.
A logo seed is a sacred word of creative power and transformation. It's similar to the reference to Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Logos, or the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Logos means universal creative principle. These archetypal principles are the building blocks, or the seed roots of the whole universe. They co-create the universe and also human consciousness. They're the seed roots of human consciousness. And every juice farm is founded and centered in 4 of these primary principles. What the Chinese call the Great Harmony, and what I refer to as holistic, perpetual, eternal harmony, integrity, liberation, and peace through renaissance, or new birth. The birth of something that's not been on the earth before. So each and every juice farm is founded on these principles, although each juice farm is very different in its form and in its expression of these principles.
Can we speak about peace through renaissance? What's different? What makes the juice farm different from any other alternatives that we've encountered in this lifetime?
The people involved with the juice farm all agree up front, before they get involved, what the common shared vision is. And we all agree that we will be working with harmony, integrity, liberation, and peace through renaissance. We begin with peace through renaissance because we got to begin somewhere. And in my own spiritual work, I was guided to begin with peace through renaissance, because 2 of the greatest problems on the planet today are war and untimely death or degenerative diseases causing early death. And so I've found out that this process of invoking and working with peace through renaissance neutralizes and transforms war and degenerative death into peace through new birth, spiritual new birth, which is what renaissance literally means. It means the birth of something that's not been on the earth before. In this case, peace, because we've been at war probably since the beginning of human beings.
Mm-hmm. So, what would you say, what kind of people could be a part of these Juice Farms?
People who would like to transform their lives. People who realize that they're not free, and if they realize they have a choice, would choose to be free if given the opportunity to learn how to be free. So anyone, in other words, any human being who chooses freedom qualifies for a juice farm, because every juice farm's purpose is to free the individuals involved so that we can live free without money.
So free choice would be one of the main principles as well.
Yes.
Of being a part of the juice farm.
An individual space, not only respected and supported, but encouraged for people to take space to themselves, for individual inner work. Because each juice farm is a process. And we work with the integration process. We're working with the principle of integrity, which is a process. All of these principles are not static states. Every one of them is a dynamic process, constantly changing. And since most of us have not ever experienced these principles, we've only dreamed about them or imagined them, we've not ever directly experienced them, the whole purpose is for us to experience these principles so that we know they're available and real and that we can share them wherever we go.
Yeah, there's a lot of unsatisfied people out there, I think.
Yes. Well, the world's in turmoil right now, and nobody seems to have even a clue about what to do about it.
Mm-hmm. So could you describe a little bit of how this juice farm can begin, and what would a typical day or non-typical day, I would say, in a juice farm look like? So we can use our creative imagination and kind of transport ourselves to there.
Well, first of all, the people involved must be self-motivated to do these various things that each juice farm is designed to do, like create energy abundance, for example. This all came about by trying to solve problems. I looked around the whole planet and I said, what are the primary problems on the planet today? This was in the 70s. And obviously one of the primary problems is energy shortage, energy distribution, the ability to generate energy, particularly clean energy, green energy, without doing a lot of environmental damage and harm and polluting the environment, so that everyone receives enough energy to at least survive and hopefully to thrive. So the juice farms are an answer to this problem of energy and food shortage. The three problems on the planet are energy, food, water, and food. Apparent critical shortages coming up here in these next very few years for millions of people on the planet. We're running out of potable water at the consumption rate of 7 billion people, and the population is going to continue to expand and grow. There's only a finite amount of water. This also determines the quality of our food. So you have no water, you have no real capacity to grow good food. So the problems are energy, water, and food. So these are the three primary problems that each juice farm addresses. Our first product is energy abundance. So we use the sun, the wind, water, running water, biomass to create methane and ethanol, all the various ways that we can create alternative fuels to supply electricity as one form of energy abundance. Energy abundance is whatever you can imagine it to be. Music is energy. Information is energy. systems, created systems that produce energy, generate energy.
Sharing breath together.
Sharing breath is a form of energy generation. Consciousness sharing, vision sharing, powwows. These are all ways of co-creating energy and sharing energy abundance.
Yeah.
So everyone keeps in mind that we've come together to solve these global problems in a local way. That's the purpose of the Juice Farms, to solve big problems and to show that we can do this, that we can locally solve large critical problems that face almost everyone on the planet. And if we can do it here, people can do it almost anywhere.
Okay, I'd like to talk about this alternative, because there are many people that are caught up in their jobs and in their lives and in their preconceived ideas of what the system is and what their lives should be. I want to talk a little bit about that, about your view of what's happening in the world right now. And so, people will stop and start asking questions and start to wake up a little bit.
I feel that the great mass of human beings over the last several centuries have been intentionally hypnotized, so to speak, through mass media and the control of information, to think a certain way, to believe certain things, to use certain paradigms in the way we think, so that we think the way that we're programmed to think. This is all an intentional way of literally enslaving us to bid someone else's bidding, to do someone else's bidding, to serve them in some way, to give them money, power, attention, whatever it is that they want for themselves. And this is creating an imbalance in all the resources of the planet. For example, in America, the American people make up less than 6% of the world's population, and at last information I received, I think we consume about 40% of the world's resources, and we're creating over half the toxic pollution of the planet, and that's less than 6% of the world's population. That's how out of balance it is. And this seems to be true for most of Western civilized social orders, meaning the Aryan people, the white people, and the way that we put our social orders together. It seems that wherever we go, we bankrupt and foul our environment. And I would like to create an alternative, particularly as a white male, to this, because I feel a karmic responsibility here. For the last 6,000 years, the Aryan patriarchy has tried to dominate and rule and control this planet. We've murdered a lot of people in the name of freedom. We've created a lot of havoc and poverty in the name of prosperity. We've created war in the name of peace. In other words, we've lied in a large, vast way. And I would just like to stop lying. And if we're going to conquer the world, let's be honest about it, and let's just be up front and say we're out to conquer the world. At least Hitler did that. He wrote Mein Kampf and said, here's my blueprint for conquering the world, and he set out to do it. The Americans lie. We're going to conquer the world, but we lie about it. We say we're going to free the world, when in fact we plan to conquer it. This deception borders on blasphemy as far as I'm concerned. When you start to murder innocent people in the name of freeing them, that's blasphemy. And that's an unforgivable sin, according to the Bible. So I would like all that to cease, and I would like to be part of a co-creation of a working alternative to all that. And I received this vision in 1974, and it is clearly a working alternative to world empire and all that goes with it. Because in every case, each juice farm is designed to generate more energy than is necessary to create and sustain it. So we've got energy abundance overflowing with it. A lot of this energy is invested right back into the juice farm in the most healing, nourishing, delicious, living food that we can create, which becomes our medicine for preventing illness and disease. The father of Western medicine, Hippocrates, said, let your food be your medicine, let your medicine be your food. So that makes a lot of sense to me. So let's create that kind of food with all this energy that we're generating. And then we can become a living example, a practical example of other ways to create abundance and share that and be free, meaning to live without money. Because if it costs 1 penny, it's not free. We have forgotten that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are kind of confused right now, and I think the best question to ask is, am I really satisfied? And am I really working and spending my whole life doing this for what? For who? Who am I, really?
Well, that's the ultimate question, isn't it? I mean, the mystics say that's the ultimate question, because without self-examination, who was it? Socrates, I think, said the unexamined life is not worth living. We must ask ourselves, who am I? What's the truth? And what's my relationship with all this? And what's my life supposed to be? Do I have a purpose? Do I have a meaning? Many people don't ask that question, and they're just carried along by their circumstances, and they never feel any sense of self-sovereignty, self-independence, self-liberation. And yet they live under social orders that claim that they want freedom for everybody. And yet no one's experiencing living freely. And I think this is a shame. This hypocrisy is a shame. I either want everyone to admit that in order to have this many people on the planet, we have to be in slavery, we have to be controlled by an outside authority, or to say, hey, if we're going to be free, let's really try to learn to live without money, to live abundantly without money, which is what freedom is. Mm-hmm. I just want to stop lying. I'm tired of lying.
I can say from my own experience that if I look back at my life and what I've done and everything, I can say I've lived a pretty good life, and I think other people will share that same feeling with me. But I can say that from my own experience, I've never experienced such satisfaction as being here, with almost no money, with energy abundance, with surrounded by beauty. So I think it's a really good alternative.
Well, Michael and I, since we've been here in Hybelito, here on David's land, have actually begun to live some of these principles and experience them. So that's, I think, what you're experiencing also, what you're feeling. Because first of all, you have to realize these principles are available, that they exist and they are available, and that we can work with them. And then we must set to work to learn how to co-create with them. Because they're definitely available. They're as available as the sunshine in the morning. And in order to thrive and to grow and develop and ultimately to transform and maybe even quantum leap, we have to receive this information. We have to go on our quest to get this information so we can transform our lives, to liberate ourselves. Because I feel that's why human beings were conceived and born, was to liberate ourselves. Nikos Kazantzakis, the Greek author, the Nobel Prize winner, basically suggested that whatever God is, God created human beings to save God, that it's our responsibility to save the creative spirit. Because it feels like that this other force in the universe, this necrophilic force, this death energy, wants to gobble everything up. And it seems like it's kind of taken over planet Earth in this last generation or two. Since it seems like the world itself wants to gobble up the planet and destroy it, I'd like to create an alternative to that process, where we actually save the planet, that we become true stewards, and that we aid the natural processes of the natural fertility and production of the planet itself. We've done this in the past. Most of the native people, most of the indigenous people around the planet have lived this way for thousands of years. It seems like only the lighter-skinned, warring, conquering people don't quite understand the connection with the earth and the responsibility to keep the earth alive. Because we're fouling our own bed. And that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, to foul your own house and your own bed.
I agree with you. And I think we spend all of our lives just working for others and cultivating, I don't know what, for who knows who. And I think it's a good time to work on a life project, which is the natural human being way. I mean, if we weren't imposed all of these rules and all of these programs, then this is the way we would live anyway. Because
Yes.
this is the natural human being instinct, and this is the gift that we've been giving. So I think, there's really nothing to lose. There's only to gain.
Well, you just revealed something important when we're working for who knows who, for who knows what, for who knows what ends. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. Most people are working for these huge corporations, and they don't have a clue what they do and how what they do fits in and serves somebody. Because if we don't, like Bob Dylan sings in that wonderful song, you got to serve somebody. It may be the devil, it may be the Lord, but you got to serve somebody. We've got to learn to serve, because in that serving we give. In that giving, we understand the satisfaction of being able to share the abundance. And with that giving comes this great, deep contentment of knowing that you're part of the creative process through your giving. And you receive in the same way. So this genuine experience of sharing, instead of competing for something, sharing the work necessary to co-create it and harvest it together. We've forgotten how to cooperate with each other. We're so programmed to compete against each other for power and for position and for attention from the time we're children on, that we think we have to constantly compete to win, to get over. And this is a false attitude that ultimately destroys everything, as we can see all around us today. So we must relearn cooperation, how to work together toward a common goal, a common end that we've agreed on up front benefits everyone. If we can relearn to do this, then harmony will prevail. Cooperation is what harmony is all about. Harmony is all the parts and particles of any system coming together to create a new whole that's greater than all the sum of all of its parts, a gestalt. There's a new wholeness that's created out of these parts renewing themselves together. So we all are parts and particles of this big whole human family. And we're in turmoil, we're in competition against our own brothers and sisters for imagined shortages that don't really exist, because this universe is an overflowingly abundant cornucopia of energy and all that rises from that energy abundance. And we can participate in that consciously, and we can harvest that abundance and share it. It's part of who we are, and it's part of what our gifts are all about. Mm-hmm. And that's what a JuiceFarms for, to create this environment where anyone who chooses to be free and live abundantly can come and learn how to co-create this together in community. And then if they want to leave that community and go return to the home that they came from, the land that they came from, they can do that. But what they've learned, they can take with them and do it when they return home and create JuiceFarms at home. This way the whole movement begins at the grassroots level, and a cultural renaissance takes place, or renaissance takes place around the whole planet, and everyone begins to experience peace through renaissance, new birth. It's available. It's an actual archetypal field of energy. All we have to do is learn to invoke it, work with it, co-create with it, and experience it. Then we know it's real and available to us whenever we choose.
Beautiful.
As far as the practical operations of each juice farm, it's hard to predict that or say what that is, because each juice farm is so different in its composition of individuals, a common vision. Each environment that a juice farm finds itself in is different, so that affects the juice farm, the form of it, the expression of it. But the whole purpose is to come together and create systems of energy using natural sources of fuel, so to speak, sun, wind, water, biomass, to create electricity and any of the other forms of energy that we can imagine. Because I'm talking about creating our own self-sustaining culture out of each juice farm. So we make our own furniture, for example. We do our own architecture so that each structure looks like it grew right up out of the land, and using the natural resources of the immediate environment. Wood, stone, whatever we've got. This gives everything an organic, natural, spontaneous feel and returns us to the natural flow and the natural cycles which we've been cut off from for so long. I choose to live this way. It just feels better to me. I've lived this way a little bit periodically in my life with others. 3 or 4 different times I've actually experienced these natural communities that have come together. It was always a group of people who had a common interest, a common motivation, and would sit down and they would blue sky together and get a common vision together, and they would set their work to manifest that common vision. And I feel that's the way almost all natural, real communities form and take place. It's got to be a commonality among all people involved, because without that there's not a self-motivation, a common drive to do the work, and the work's got to be done. Because we can't just sit around and talk about this for the rest of our lives. We've got to actually work to manifest it.
And I think the most important thing that really brought my attention to these juice farms is that there is no leader. There is a shared wisdom. There is a shared experiences. Nobody knows exactly the how it's supposed to be done, and nobody has a certain set of chores that need to be done. But, whatever your choice is at that moment. So I think this is the beauty of it, because in all of these communities there's always some kind of pattern, some kind of methodology, which is the same bullshit as the empire.
Yes.
So I think to ultimately live free, there must be a co-creation, there must be a community, there must be a sharing of ideas, a sharing of information, and I'm sure with your experience you've had you have a lot of information to share, and I think we can all learn from it. But I think everyone else is going to also participate with their own experience, and that coming together will create the magic.
Yes.
So I think this is really important to know that there's no, and if you want to participate in the project, you can participate in the project. If you don't want to participate in the project and you think it's silly, well, then you think it's silly, then I think this is the most important thing to have in mind, that everyone has their own experience, and everyone has their ways and their wisdom from their past.
Yes, this is very important. No one person can create a community. It requires a community of people to create a community, to co-create a community in cooperation with each other. Otherwise, it's just another pyramid with some guy sitting on top of it running the show, which is the old paradigm. And in most cases, most intentional communities really are, it's a vision of usually one male, who gets a group of people together who are dissatisfied in some way with their lives, and he's very charismatic and a good talker, and before you know it, they start to follow him and get dependent on him, and then you have just another benign dictatorship. If indeed it's benign. Before you know it, he ends up telling you who you can marry, who you can have a relationship with, what your children are going to be named, that you've got to change your name and he'll give it to you and all that. Because that's the way most of those communities work. This is not a community, this is a dictatorship. And it's just the old paradigm all over again. No, everyone involved must have an equal say-so in the co-creation of the community itself. And that means equal participation, too, with energy. Community literally means that. Union, with union, together. So everyone involved is centered, relatively integrated and whole, and therefore you have a community that's relatively centered, integrated, and whole, and all the relationships follow that flow. I would rather have a relationship with another integrated human being than a woman, for example. I would rather have a relationship with a woman who is whole, centered and whole, than a male, a typical male-female relationship that I've been trained to co-create in the past. This obviously usually ends in divorce in America 5 or 6 times out of 10. It's not the way to create a relationship.
And I think it's such a natural way as well of developing your personal skills and kind of letting your creative imagination take place with a very supportive environment where you can share your ideas and not just talk about football, let's say.
See?
And really talk about the more important questions of life and what it represents, and kind of take a different perspective on the system and the life that we choose to live.
Yes. And this is what a juice farm is for. To create an environment where we can learn to be free. It's that simple. And to create. So that if you get inspired to do a certain thing, there's an area, a work area that you can go to immediately, and there's resources there, there's equipment, there's technology, there's materials, whatever's necessary for you to manifest that vision. For example, if you get an image or a dream that you can create a new kind of guitar, there's a guitar shop. You can go and you can make a guitar. You can get a prototype going. This is so important because so many of our inspirations get lost in the gap between the inspired moment and the perspiration of making it happen. I think Thomas Edison said creation is 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration. The inspiration is the fun part. Perspiration is getting down to the struggle of making it work. How do I make this vision real?
And it's about discovering sides and aspects of yourself that you never knew were actually there.
That's it. It's the learning,
really
growing.
Develop your human potential, the gift that we've all been given, and we just blindly go through life without acknowledging it.
Yes.
To live consciously and with integrity for everyone.
And this is obviously available to us if we choose to co-create it. It's a matter of changing attitude, making a choice, and then following through, making sure you follow through. This is walking your talk. This is what integrity is all about. So that what you say about yourself and everyone's experience with you is one and the same. There's no gap. There's no difference. This is what integration is all about. Honest expression of what you really feel and think in every moment, so there's never any doubt with anyone in the community what you're feeling and thinking. There's nothing hidden. There's no need to hide anything. And yet if you want privacy, if you want space, it's encouraged that you are given that space and that privacy, because we all must have that also. Creating community is a very tightrope experience. The individual must always be considered first and foremost, because the community is made up of individuals. And the individual is first. It's primary. That little baby is the most important individual in the community and must be considered as such. And we're all babies. In the 70s, this came through me in a poem. These are my children and I am their child. We're all each other's children and guardians. We're not responsible for each other, but we're all responsible to each other. Mm-hmm. It's important to remember this. We must respond to other human beings and not be responsible for other human beings, but encourage them to be responsible for themselves.
And we're all gurus.
Everyone is their own genius and master and savior. No one's coming to save us. This is our karma individually and collectively. We must clean up the mess we've made. Just imagine what it would be if everyone picked up their own trash alone and took care of their own trash and garbage. And didn't even think about picking up anybody else's. Well, 80 to 90% of it would probably disappear within a generation and get recycled. It really is a matter of attitude shift and adjustment of behavior, which can be a very difficult thing for a lot of people. We get habitually addicted to certain patterns of behavior, and it's like any other addiction. We can't break it.
So if anyone listening to this now, that observes the world and can see there's something wrong. It doesn't feel right how development of the world is taking place now in so many areas. And for these people who at night watch up at the sky and can see the stars in heaven and wonder, what is this life about? And if you want to become a student of life, to learn how to be free and to see if there is a human potential that you can imagine yourself to co-create with others in a co-creative play in these JuiceFarms, and at that same time be an example for how to live in this paradise that this earth really is. So we don't have to talk about what we're doing. We become the living information of life itself, how we can play like children in the garden again and transform our lives into a new consciousness, into something new that's never been before.
Beautiful, Michael. Yes.
University of Freedom. How to be free, really, and what is freedom for you, and for you, and how can we share those experiences together by coming together in communion into the meeting point in its center, and then we may experience something that we can't talk about.
If we can articulate it, we can manifest it. If we can put it into words and share that and communicate that, we can literally bring it on down into matter and into form. The first step is to see it and express it. And then to agree on various ways to manifest it and to set to work to make that happen, just by showing up and agreeing to do what you said you would do. Chop the wood, carry the water. If you say, I'll chop the wood and carry the water Wednesday morning, then be there and chop the wood and carry the water. If you say you're going to work on a solar panel, or if you're going to plant seeds in the garden, show up there at the time you say, roughly, and do what you say you'll do. This is integrity. Then your word is good. And people, when you say something, they feel that you will follow through and you will basically complete what you say.
It's as simple as that.
It is that simple. And we're programmed to do other than that, so that's why it's difficult, because to do the correct thing, we usually have to go against our own program, which has always been to do the incorrect thing to serve the empire that we live in. Well, I'm tired of being a slave to empire. I choose not to do that anymore. I choose to create something else instead, where I have more of an individual say-so in my life and in the kind of social order that I'm participating in. And I feel a lot of people are coming to that point in their lives where they want a similar lifestyle. I think you both do. That's why we're having this conversation.
That's for sure.
It's one of the reasons that you're here visiting now. Mm-hmm. To see if we can work this out in some way. So far, we're working it out wonderfully. We seem to be very compatible. So there's something definitely workable here.
And I feel I have everything I need right here, right now.
Well, Michael and I have been experiencing that here for over a year now. We've had more than we've needed. We've had an abundance here for a very economically reasonable lifestyle. And it's been wonderful. So we know we can create it, at least at this level, on this scale.
There's been a transition space and time period, like a little bit in between what's to come, a pre-learning place. And
we've experienced enough of that to realize that it really is available. It's just literally now a matter of applying ourselves to invest our energy in this work.
We invest our energy in so many more meaningless things that, to have this peace of mind and to experience peace and harmony and satisfaction, finally,
Yes.
once and for all.
And it is all energy and our choice of how we're going to invest that energy that we're given with our breath. So I choose to co-create genuine peace and stop contributing my living energy to war. And I choose to create a longer, healthier life and stop putting so much energy into death and to degenerative diseases. And if I can make that choice and then invest my energy in the new choice, my feeling is I'll actually co-create an alternative to war and death and degenerative disease. And that would be some of the biggest problems on the planet solved right here locally among the people involved in every juice farm.
Yeah, I like what you said. We're not going to save the world, but we can sure be an example.
That's the point. We can't save the world, but we can be an alternative to it, to show that something else is available for other people if they choose, because we're like everybody else. We're not special. We're just folks like everybody else. Any other questions or observations about juice farms or?
That beauty is alive. And in that aliveness, a poem is taking place. And we become poets in this poem. And when we choose to express ourselves in this living moment, that's where our energy goes. Where attention goes, energy goes. And we co-create a new consciousness through that.
Where love is made visible.
Where love is made visible, which is Gibran's definition of work. Work is love made visible. What a way to live, where your whole lifestyle is an action of love that you express and make visible to everyone else.
An instrument of love.
An instrument of love. A hollow bamboo flute that love blows through to create its melody. Its love song. Well, you and I have experienced it here for over a year now, or a year roughly, over a year now. In the last week or so, you've experienced it somewhat. So you know that this isn't just talk and hot air, that these are real and available. And anyone listening to this can experience these qualities, these principles, and apply them and create a lifestyle.
And if questions arises, feel free to ask. And there's so much more information about these juice farms, really, that life could talk about for days and weeks without stopping, really. So we scratched the surface of juice farm information in that regard, to begin with.
All right. Should we close out? Aloha.